Hi there, everyone. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet.
Angela Gabrielle here from Elevated Planet, and we'd like to welcome you to today's show. It's more deep diving into Yeshua and the Essenes, and John's going to tell us more about it.
Yeah, I can't get enough of this story. I've been continuing to research this throughout the week, and our show this week is based on one of the things that really fascinated me because we have this three-part process which we've heard about from Alariel, which is all about the light, okay, the technology of light, and how this is something that will transform this planet. But to bring it to us is a three-step process. And there was the original foundations of it back in the times of Atlantis. The second point of that was the crucifixion of Jesus. And that really interested me. Like how could that event that stands in time like as all the religious, any of the Christian religions anyway, focus on that moment as being the biggest sacrifice and everything that Jesus died on the cross to save mankind for his sins and all that. Um, but was it something different? And then finally, you get to the era, which is now, today, part three of a three-part process, which we are entering right now, or we have entered. I believe we've entered it. We're going through it now. And it's exciting because, all the noise in the background, the chaos and everything you see in the world around you is part of this. This is the old energies playing out and old karma being repaid because there is going to be a transformation. The transformation, the metamorphosis, we're in that process. So I thought this week we would dive down deep into the Yeshua side of things and learn more again about the Essenes, as Jolie said, about the process around Yeshua for the crucifixion. And having gone into this myself personally, I thought, wow, my mind was just blown by what I learned. And I thought, this is actually really empowering for us in the here and now. So it's not just historical. This is something that tells us about the power that we have and how we can use that to elevate consciousness, how we can become what we are destined to become, which I believe is something pretty special. So, that's it. We're going to continue with the work of Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice. And the books, we were looking previously at Power of the Magdalene, which is an amazing piece of work. And this one is the book that was prior to that, which was The Essenes, Children of the Light. And really, what this all comes down to, just to remind anybody who's not been around for looking at the previous programs, this is all about the use of hypnotic regression to go back into lives. And it's amazing how, whether you're talking about, Dolores Cannon as somebody who was kind of an instigator with this, who created the hypnosis that really created so much interest across so many subjects, whether it was the work with Nostradamus, whether it was the Convoluted Universe series, the three waves of volunteers coming to this planet. It was really groundbreaking stuff. Now, okay, if you are skeptical and cynical, you could turn around and say, well, it's just hypnosis and this is people telling a story. And you have to exercise your own judgment on that. I know I've exercised mine, and I'm pretty confident that the way that I look at things now is completely opened up because you think about things from a historical context and you're looking back over thousands of years, and very, learned people are drawing conclusions about information that has been left behind and drawing the conclusions that come to them as being what could be the truth. Now, that's all well and good, and they do excellent work. But what is better than that? Is actually speaking to somebody who is alive at that time, who you can have a conversation with across space and time, and they can report to you exactly what the truth is and what is happening around them and why it's happening. That's exactly what these books are about. That's why it's so fascinating, because you think back, history books, all this kind of thing, there's a lot of supposition there. And they do say, the truth is always written by the victors. So they are always sort of, and again, you've only got to look at the Bible, right? The Bible is a very distorted book. Because there is an agenda at play across much of it. Some of it, I'm sure, is absolutely true to what it was supposed to be, but a great deal of it is distorted. So, what better way than to look at these things through the eyes of somebody who was there at that time who can answer that question? And it's amazing how the right people turn up to the right hypnotists, if you like, because that's where it worked with Dolores Cannon. It's the way it works with Sarah Breskman Cosme. And it's also the way that it's worked with Joanna and Stuart working together on this. They've come across so many people who were in the Essene communities, and it's not by accident. It's because it is of this time. And many of those Essenes are coming back right now. And in fact, I was only reading about this bit today. There was a recognition by Daniel Ben Ezra, who is the main spokesperson for the Essenes during this particular show today. So Daniel Ben Ezra was explaining, like later on in the book, how they know everything happens in certain cycles, and there is like a 2,000-year cycle after which he was fully expecting the Essenes to come back at that time because they knew that was going to be an important time. That is what's happening here. That information that's coming forward is coming forward with a purpose and coming forward with a reason. So, Jolie, before I babble on anymore, can I bring you back in?
And part of the distortion is us thinking that we are not expansive enough to understand or accept people who are channeling these energies. And so we really challenge you to open your mind and your heart to understanding that the Creator speaks to all and through all, and these energies are moving through all of us. And just like they are hearing and they're sharing with you and us this message and this energy, it is also possible for you and I to have this energy move through us and add more value to the spiritual and emotional development of mankind. John has really taught me so much about this because I cloud ride so much that oftentimes grounding and really getting into the science behind some of these things, or the tangible science behind some of these things, is not my jam. I'm more in the energy. But the fact that we're able to start to unpack some of this, put the puzzle pieces together, really helps our liberation. So let's just open our heart and minds and listen to what this is telling us and take really all the good and just leave on the table what it is that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, no, that's always the case, isn't it? We never
Yeah.
ask anybody to believe what we say. It's kind of
Yeah,
what resonates with you. That's the thing anything that doesn't resonate, just leave it behind.
exactly.
That's really what it comes down to. We always share our truth, but our truth is ours. Everybody is
Yeah.
a sovereign being for a reason. So yeah, great.
And another thing I just want to add before we
Hmm.
move on is that sometimes religion makes us rigid, right? But we know the spirit to be movable and interchangeable. It's a living, moving, breathing thing we're all a part of. It's alive. So the restrictions sometimes that we are taught and the programming, we're being asked in this day and age to let go of some of that, really critically think and open up that portal between the mind and the heart. And what does that look like? That kind of resonates. That kind of makes sense versus maybe I need to drop that belief system because where I'm going, that doesn't serve me. So this is a beautiful journey. So I'm ready, John.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and talking about the ability to cut through the rubbish, if you like, if you want to call it that, just to be polite.
Yes.
We have Sean the Shaman with us, who is somebody who, for our own channel, which is Cottage of the Priest, she does cut through it, and she has a great way with her, for her expressing energy. And it's great to have you here with us, Sean.
Yes. Thank you,
Always,
Sean.
yeah, and love your work as well. So, okay, we're going to go and hit that button now, Jola. Yeah.
Let's go.
We now moved forward in time. It was towards the end of Jesus' ministry, and the Essenes were meeting in a large cave, which was to the north of Jerusalem. Here is Daniel's account of this gathering.
It is a big meeting in this cave, in a remote and hilly place, and it's at night. The cave and the ways leading to it are well guarded, so we will not be surprised by anyone. We are sitting in a circle, maybe about 30 people. In front of us are lamps so that we can see the faces. The only other light is coming from the middle of the circle, where there is a huge round crystal. It's pale purple in color and is glowing. There are people here from all the communities, as well as the core group. This is a special place, a sacred place, and we've been meditating here for some time before anyone speaks. Members of the core group are talking about Jesus and his next step forward. They either call it his ritual death experience or sometimes simply his process. So we're discussing the preparations that have to be made, the effort which has been put in, and the possibility of succeeding. And it's a very special process he will be going through, focusing on the use of the love energies through the heart. This is a new energy, a cosmic energy, which is being brought in and demonstrated so that others can see how to use it. It is capable of taking people through a process of spiritual transformation in a direct way which is quite different from the complex methods used in the past. Jesus is marking out a new path, a broad new road into the light. It is not certain that he will be able to achieve this, but the members of the core group are optimistic. They seem to talk from much deeper knowledge than we possess. We all hope it will work. We understand that it will help human development if it succeeds, but it's not certain. There are doubts, and some of us have more doubts than others. We can see it in theory. It's being explained to us. We hope it will work, and we'll do what we can to assist, but it's not at all certain. So the plan is being laid before us. Jesus will go forward and act out in public the climax of the mystery school teaching. He will go through a mock trial, be crucified, and bring all the energies together into a synthesis. He will need a massive amount of support to sustain him while all this is proceeding. I just wish we had the certainty of the core group. We will go forward with high hopes, but also much anxiety. So, there's a lot of support needed now, a lot of focusing and building up of the energy in order to help in this process. We're using the energy lines connecting the communities. We have been gathering crystals for some time and working on the sites, linking them together and activating them. This huge crystal here in the cave is one of the focal points in this energy system. The plan has been put forward, and we've discussed it, and it's generally agreed. There will be group leaders who lead the meditation in their communities. The meditational energy will be generated and directed to Jesus at higher levels, so he will have both this higher energy and the energy through the system with the crystals. There are crystals in patterns to hold the energy, and the energy of each of the community sites leads into the central area. Triangles flowing into a central triangle to make a complete energy system. There was an inner and an outer energy system. The outer energy, generated by the earth, focused and intensified by crystals, was directed along lines of force running across the surface of the land toward Jesus on the cross. This enabled the energy levels in his body to be maintained. The inner meditational energy was fed by the communities into subtle levels for directing to Jesus. Together, these two sources provided a complete system of support. The inner energy sustained and nourished the higher aspects of his being, and particularly their link with the physical body. It was essential that this link was strongly maintained until his energy process was completed.
And the outer system using earth energies What points form the central triangle in this?
The central triangle was formed by Jerusalem, the main focus of this drama, Qumran, and the cave.
And the cave was to the north of Jerusalem.
In a hilly area well to the north, it formed a roughly equal-sided triangle with Qumran and Jerusalem.
This was a vital clue for us. It would place the cave almost halfway between Jericho and the town of Silwad, just to the north of the modern road which connects these two places. It is even today a remote area, and we could see that it would have served the Essenes well as the secret location for an important meeting cave. Looking at the overall pattern, it was now clear what Daniel meant by triangles flowing into a central triangle. When we were able to step back and look at the whole system as identified on the map, we were amazed at the distances involved. This energy system runs for over 120 miles. To work with what we would now call ley lines in the establishment of such a system must have been a major undertaking. We are not experts in earth energies, but we have friends who are, and they tell us that working with the energies in this way takes a lot of time and effort. How could the Essenes have possibly been able to think that far ahead? When I asked Daniel about that, this was his reply.
The original plan came from the Kalu, and our people started working with the earth energies in alignment with this plan as soon as the communities were set up.
We found this quite extraordinary, and it led on to other questions. Why would the Kalu have encouraged the Essenes to set up such an energy system, a system that would have involved years of work, the use of rare and expensive crystals, and the constant danger of discovery? Had they foreseen a specific need at the time of Jesus? This must have been a big undertaking for the communities to set up such a system.
Yes, it was a vast project. Most of the basics had been put in place before my lifetime. A lot of effort was put in over many years, strengthening the energy lines so that the power could be concentrated. The work had to be done very quietly and secretly so as not to attract the attention of the other Jews.
And how long did all this take?
The whole operation lasted about 150 years. The Kalu started assessing and developing the sites as soon as they arrived in the region. It was a priority for them to develop this energy system. The system was based on the natural energy lines that run along the surface of the earth, with additions and strengthening of the patterns, making a truer geometrical form through the use of crystals.
Did the Kalu set up this system for general use, or were they making preparations for a special event?
It was quite specific. They knew another teacher of righteousness would come, and this would be needed when his work reached a climax. The Kalu were wise indeed. They knew what was to come and made preparations accordingly. We did not know the detail of their future knowledge, but they spoke of a great teacher of righteousness who was to come, and that all this work would support him. That was enough for us. We were content to carry out their plans. You do not question wise and holy beings who are far above you, and who can see the pattern of things more clearly than you can.
So there it is. The Kalu had foreseen the coming of Jesus and the need for a support system at the end of his ministry. And they worked with the Essenes over more than a century to put this support system in place. We were interested to get some confirmation of work upon the energy system from another source, John reliving his life as Luke. I was asking him what his work was, and among other things, Luke said this.
I was working with crystals, walking the earth energy lines to make them stronger, to build them up.
You say lines. Where did these lines go to?
They connected the communities, and certain other power points. They worked together to form a complete system.
If the Kalu came from Atlantis, they would have had great skill in the use of crystals, and the construction of such an energy grid does not seem so remarkable in the light of Atlantean knowledge and technology. What was remarkable was the difficult conditions under which the Essenes had to work. The inner triangle in the system was particularly interesting. It connected the large crystal in Qumran, the crystal in the cave, and Jesus on the cross. In a sense, Jesus was the third crystal, the focal point for all these forces. A teacher who has been an inspiration to our whole group, Anne Hughes, once said to us that Christos is the crystal. We never understood this at the time, but that statement fits perfectly within this larger perspective.
So, what I really find incredible about this, the story we have, obviously, of Jesus, going through his ministry, the fact that he was hounded down, that he was, crucified by those who didn't want him to get his message out there. And yet, we now learn that 150 years before the crucifixion, they were planning the energetic event that was to be that crucifixion, which was a vital part of this process that is impacting us today, that is now of its time. Part 3 of a 3-part process, that was part 2. And it just blew my mind to kind of realize 150 years. It was the Kalu, that Atlantean wisdom that stepped forward, that created the Essene community in the first place, which was all about peace and harmony and balance, which was not the way it was typically in that region at that time. Because they knew that the teacher of righteousness was going to turn up. They knew when he was going to turn up. And they knew that they would need an energetic support system to get him through this crucifixion, which we come to next. So hang on to your hats, because this gets ever more interesting. So, and Jeshua himself was the third crystal in the triangle. So crystal, Qumran, crystal in the cave, he was Christos, right? Christos meaning crystal. And this really got me thinking. I've heard it so many times, is that the human evolution that we are going to go through, call it a metamorphosis, involves us becoming more crystalline in nature, okay? We're carbon-based human forms at the moment, okay? The DNA, I assume, again, is that carbon-based, but that's what I've heard, is the DNA element of this becomes more crystalline, because the crystalline energy can hold a higher frequency, therefore, and a higher depth, and which is why the crystal children who are coming to the planet right now and have been for a little while, they are there to circulate this energy. They are there to continue this, to be able to teach it. So as teachers, they're coming in again with that higher crystalline frequency, because they are light conceived, which means that they have the mother's 2 strands of DNA, but the other 2 strands of DNA comes from spirit rather than from the man. That the man has just an imprint of his consciousness into the light, into the light conception. And that enables them to come in, because the crystal children are the ones who have lived in past lives in civilizations where the technology of light, which is what this is all about, this is bringing us the technology of light, because that is a real evolutionary step. So many of these children are coming from civilizations in different parts of the universe where technology of light has been used and understood for hundreds of years. So they will become our teachers. And we have the opportunity to learn from them and for us to become more crystalline. But it's all about frequencies, right? It's all about frequencies, because it's not about how spiritual you are, because you may not have a spiritual bone in your body. But if you are a person who, again, is just naturally a good person, who is kind and compassionate and cares for others, cares for animals or whatever. You know, that's a higher frequency. I mean, you can claim to be spiritual and actually be way off course because, you know, you get involved in spiritual hierarchy or whatever. So it's about the frequency at which you're resonating. So you know, I find that really amazing. But the fact that Christ was the Christos, and the fact is we are going to be Christ's ourselves. And in fact, if you go back to the excerpt that from Yeshua in Pamela Cribb's insertion into Your Soul's Gift, which was Robert Schwartz's book, where Yeshua actually said that, you know, you will become Christ's yourselves. In other words, we are becoming Christos, which means we're becoming that more crystalline structure, the ability to hold more light. That's why this is a metamorphosis. This is not just, you know, a slight change. This is a change of everything. This is a shift of the ages, and that's what makes it so exciting. And it also kind of reminds me about that thing I mentioned a few times, but it's the Saratoga Ocean who channels Archangel Michael, and actually Archangel Michael comes into the crucifixion side of things that comes up next as well as a point of interest. But he talks about the dimensional shift and the fact that you know, we're going through this time of contraction. It's this funnel, and we're getting closer to this end of the funnel where it's getting narrower and narrower. So the question is, what happens during a time of dimensional shift? Well, Saratoga Ocean, who channels Archangel Michael, put it very well. Here we are in our current dimension, and on the other side, our new dimension awaits. However, to travel to this higher frequency dimension, we have to go through this point of singularity, which means a condensing of all the energies. After all, we are all part of the unified energy field. So the point of singularity is our portal to this higher dimension, but we have to go through this chaotic contraction in order to come out the other side. But once we do, we find ourselves bursting through into an era of rapid expansion and advanced higher frequency evolution. And we need to be able to match that higher frequency by having shed any destructive patterns and behaviors of the past, which is why so many of these are coming back to the surface to be resolved and dissolved, as this is baggage that we cannot take with us. So don't suppress anything that arises, allow it to move through and be released into the light. This is a time of opportunity and joy, despite any near-term challenges, because a world of unspeakable beauty awaits. So time speeds up, everything becomes more and more chaotic. Then you go through the point of singularity or the portal, and you come out the other side into rapid expansion, but a higher dimension. So you, I, everyone who goes through that portal needs to be able to resonate at a frequency which is adjacent to where we're going. So that means that we have to be like on this journey of higher frequency kind of thing. And, you know, Jolie will talk more about this, but I think that is really, that makes sense to me as well. And, you know, this thing about the originals and the crystals, and again, Jolie and I had a discussion before we started the program. You know, the originals, I assume I'm an original, which an original means that somebody who's been earthbound in sort of embodied on earth through many lifetimes. Now, but even then, I know that even as an original at earth, assuming that to be the case, we have galactic roots. We have a galactic family. We all do. We all do, every single one of us. We will have been living on certain other planets as well. In our evolutionary energy, we would have, I mean, again, through Dolores Cannon's Convoluted Universe, you hear so much about this. You know, you don't even have to be in a physical body. You can be any form of energy, and that's a lot of her clients were regressed to lives which were completely nothing to do with a physical form, or even a light body for that matter. So that's kind of something that we bear in mind. But yeah, this is all about being able to break through this separation, you know, this separation consciousness back into unity consciousness, going out of the duality of the mind into the unity of the heart. That is what we're stepping into right now. I think it's really exciting, but I'm going to shut up now because I need to bring in Jolie. Jolie, what do you think?
You see, we could just go on and on and on and on.
I
It
do.
just moves on. But it's okay because as it's coming through, it's beautiful that we're able to share and add value. And you might ask yourself, you talk about resonating at a higher frequency and vibration. What does that mean? What does that look like for me on an individual level? How do I get there? We, for so long, have been suppressing what is going on inside of us because quite a bit of it is nasty, wrong, and parasitical. So we hear these, voices in our head, and we know better than to say anything about them or to verbalize, right? So
Hmm.
we just kind of move on. No, stop that. I'm not saying verbalize, but what I am saying is say that's a thought I no longer need. That's a ism, right? Any of the ones that happen to be an ism, you see something and then automatically you drop into judgment and labeling. Stop, right? At that moment. That's that moment of where John talks about where it's real narrow and then the rapid expansions on the other side. But in a microcosm, this is how you would do it. It's a process of understanding how you're thinking. It's not serving you. Take a moment to recognize that and go, uh-uh, we're going to choose something different at this moment. Why are you here? You're a mind parasite. Let me get you out of here. Let me bring in my roses, scrape them out or pull it out and put it in a rose, blow it up, fill up with gold light. But in the meantime, deal with those thoughts, those nasties that come in, those mind parasites, right? Get rid of them. Then how do we then up level and resonate? We open up the portal between our heart and our mind and our heart, and then we resonate and we see how it feels to love. I notice sometimes with my clients and just with people in my life, and even with me, I stand at the front of the line. People want to come in and hug me. They want to come in and give me good energy. They want to come in, they want to compliment me. And the first thing I want to do, even people want to offer me more money. The first thing I want to do, oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. No, oh, you're pretty too. Own it. Like, let it in. Let it in. Oh, somebody says you're beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. That's where and that's it. Take it in. Own these things that are good about you. Own the things that you kind of want to step into and stop shying away from the positivity and then seeing a beautiful girl and she has a tattoo. And now we need to focus on the fact, here we go, labeling, judging, instead of embracing her. Like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. Why? Because you're noticing and honoring the beauty in you, right? So that's how you begin to up level. And it's helped me a lot. I see beautiful people. I'm the first person to say, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're loving, you're kind, you're gorgeous, you're amazing. Why? Because I want to see that mirrored back to me. So this is how we begin because we have issues. It's okay. Like we've been taught to compete and we need to be the best in the room and the type A, and it gets really ugly out here with that ego-based movement. Nevertheless, drop it in the heart. How does it make you feel? Does her beauty make you feel uncomfortable? Does his intelligence and his willingness to be courageous and step out on stage make you feel a certain way? That's your work. Because you know what? Deep inside, you want the same things, but you're just not willing to work for it. Once again, I'm saying I sit at the front of the line. But the difference is I recognize and I can say to myself, sit down, write it out, do your work, go in nature, let it go, ground, fill up with gold light. So it's a practice. So back to the beginning, these thoughts that we have, we've got to start identifying them, getting out of the fear, and dealing with them one on one. This is not a community event. Up leveling becomes a community event once you up level and now you're willing to get out there and add value. Now you're ready to come into community in a way that you can step to the front. But some of the work requires solitude and negativity and the things that need to kind of be flushed out of your system. There are professionals that can help you deal with that, but on a spiritual level, it's good to recognize and do your own personal work.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, I think these tools are so valuable because this is something that impacts all of us, and therefore having those at your disposal and you can kind of like activate that and just get used to, I suppose, that process.
Yes.
Super empowering.
Yeah. One more thing. Benjamin Franklin, there, I don't know why I know this, but I wanted to he used to do a thing where he kept a notepad with him or whatever, and every day he would check off when he did what he needed to do. And I feel like maybe getting back to checking off these things 3 times a day, having a list, going through and practicing, even drilling down in a way can really help more. I mean, of course, 99% of us are not going to do that, but Ben Franklin, I mean, some think he was special. We don't know, but whatever, he's impactful. So I'm sure he has some good stuff to give.
I'm beginning my Benjamin Franklin list right now.
There you go. See?
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it does make total sense because it's all about building in those disciplines, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and you have to kind of, embed it first because until it becomes something you don't even think about, you just do it.
Right. That's the point, right? Is to become instead of, and this week in the affirmations, it's all about stepping out of who you are and stepping into who you want to become. And that's kind of an action, and it takes moment to moment. People say a day at a time, but some of these things you got to moment to moment, minute to minute is the best way to kind of take it. Breathe. When you don't know what to do, breathe, and then wait for that message to come in from the divine. And another thing that helped me too, and we'll move on, John, is a lot of the stuff that would strike me as needing work, I would want to externalize it to other people, and burden them with that. And I ask us to take a step back and really work with the divine on these things because the divine and Mother Earth can take it in. Other people, sometimes we have matching pictures, we can trigger them. We can bring people down. And right now, as we move through this time of tightness, it's really what we want is that expansion. So what we want to do is bring joy, bring laughter. Let's try to wake people up. And the rest of the time, you can be the hermit,
Yeah.
work on your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the breathing thing is one of my favorite things to do, I must admit. But the joy thing, right?
Yeah.
The more you get into that elevated frequency of joy, and obviously that part of that challenge is actually not get buying into the narratives that are out there that are designed to challenge you. That's why they're there.
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
it's rising above them and seeing them for what they are because, you know, we are bigger and stronger than that. And that's what many of the controls out there don't want us to realize. It's all a bit of
Right.
a game.
Yeah.
It's a game we can
And
win.
it's you're the answer. We're the answer to our own prayers and to our own. And I know that sounds big, even for me. Like I sit here with some of these concepts, I do wrestle them and I sit in dissonance often, but I try to work through them because even me, when I'm listening to this, there's a part of me that goes, okay, this dude is channeling with this accent and da da da. I just talked about this. I have to sit with the creator works through everything all the time. The spirit, the quantum, it works through everything. It has no limitations. The only limitations are what we give it. So let's try to sit back and get into neutrality. So it's not about accepting or not accepting, it's just about it exists. Does this work for me? You know? If
Hmm.
not, put it down, but no reason to want to stamp it out, right?
Yeah.